this is a video of shoulder movement. We'll be working on the control of the shoulder blade as we make arm movements. A couple of things just to remember before we start. One of the things that you need to be aware of when you do these movements is to be very conscious of keeping length through the spine, particularly through the neck and into the head. This ensures that you're going to be able to keep the distance between the ear and the top of the shoulder as much as you can. And it means also that you'll have more control over keeping the shoulders down away from the ears instead of hitching up, which is a compensatory move that we often make. Also, when you're doing long arm movements, think about not necessarily just having a relaxed arm with your hand just hanging on the end of the arm. Think about lengthening through the middle finger so that you engage the muscles of the arm as well as into the shoulder, so that you can support the weight of the arm and you're not putting all the strain through the shoulder joint itself. So that's another thing to remember. Okay, we're going to begin with some neck rolls and some chin tucks. I'm going to do them on the ball. You can do them on the head cushion, of course, if you wish. But I just thought it would be a nice way to start just with a little bit of neck release before we actually get into the shoulder movements. So coming down onto the mat, ball under the back of the head, away from the shoulders, arms down by your side in your nice relaxation position. Just checking with the spine, making sure that you've got a nice neutral position and the weight is through the feet, the back of the sacrum, the back of the ribs, and the head is just resting into the ball. And then gently, breathing naturally, just look over one shoulder, allowing the ball to move underneath the head, draw back through centre and to the other side. Just take it as far as you feel comfortable. If you feel that the shoulders are reacting, don't take it quite so far. And just pause for a moment, just enjoying that rotation through the neck and the gentle stretching down one side. And last one. Now we're going to do some chin tucks. So just very gently, think about tipping the skull forwards right on the top of the spine. And then drawing back to the centre, keeping length through the back of the neck. And then just open the throat slightly, taking the nose away. And back through the centre. And again, lengthening through the back of the neck. And away. So a little bit of flexion and gentle extension through the neck as well. Just releasing the tension in the muscles down the side of the neck. They often compensate when we've got problems with the shoulder. You often find that there will be strain or the feeling of strain going up into the neck as well. So this is a really nice movement to do before you start working on the shoulders. Coming back to the centre, and then just simply pop yourself up. You can remove the ball if you're using that, and then replace your head cushion. Okay, the first exercise we're going to do is shoulder drops, which is a nice simple movement, but is a really nice way of getting some movement of your shoulder blades around your ribs. So this is going to be protracting and retracting your shoulder blades, and also you activate some muscles which act like fingers from the shoulder blade down the side of the ribs as well. So have the hands above the chest, and let's have the palms facing in. And now we're going to simply lengthen one arm up to the ceiling, keeping the spine heavy on the mat, and then allow the arm to come back down. You should feel the shoulder blade melt into the mat. Other side. And back. So again, breathing in and breathe out. As long as you're breathing perhaps one breath per movement, it's not really essential that you do it one way or the other, just as long as you are breathing. So try not to add any rotation to this. This is purely allowing the fingers to come up towards the ceiling and then allowing the shoulder to come back down to the mat. So you should be aware of your shoulder blade rolling around your ribs and then coming back down to the mat. And then we can take it into doubles. Think about length through the fingers. Gaze directly up to the ceiling. Length through the back of the neck. And then still the arms, and then you can bring them back down by your side. So the next exercise we're going to do is some backstroke arms. So let's start with the arms down by the side, the palms are facing down towards the mat. Think about length through the back of the neck, taking the top of the head away to whatever's behind you, and your tailbone down towards the feet. Just take a moment to breathe here, and then as we breathe in, we're going to bring up one arm above the chest, and then as you breathe out, you're going to take the arm over towards the ear, just as far as it feels comfortable for you. And then we're going to breathe in as we bring both arms up and exchange, and breathe out as we take the arms away, one down by the hip and one up by the ear. Breathing in to exchange, breathe out. So this is taking our shoulder through the range of flexion that we have. You may be restricted, go as far as you feel comfortable, but remember the length through the fingers. Lengthening through the fingers activates the correct muscles to help you perform this movement. Length through the top of the head, back of the neck. Breathing out as you take the limbs away, breathe in to come up to the top, breathe out as you come over. You can do a few more of these, and then bring the arms back up above the chest, and then bring them both back down by your side. Okay, we're now going to come into some rib cage closure, which is where we take both arms back behind us. One of the things that you can do with this, if you find this movement quite difficult to do with any shoulder problems that you have, you could actually use a band and just have a little bit of tension on the band, but make sure the hands, when you've got that tension on the band, are just about shoulder width apart, so that they're going to be above your chest, a little bit of tension. That can sometimes take, to make the shoulder more comfortable, you may still have the range, but it may just be the mechanics of actually getting into that flexed position that may be troublesome for you. So just think about possibly using a band. I will do it with the band, and then I'll also stop and do it without the band as well. Okay. So you can start with your hands just down by your hips if you've got the band, or on the mat if you haven't got the band. You're going to take a breath in as you bring the arms up to the top, and then you're going to breathe out as you take the arms overhead towards the ears, just as far as you can, keeping the ribs nicely connected down onto the mat. Breathe in to come back up, and out to close back down to the start. And again, breathing in to come up to the top, breathe out to come over. Breathe in to come up to the top, and out to close back down. And continue here. So breathe in to come up to the top, and out. Come back up to the top, remembering length through the fingers. Shoulders away from the ears, length in the back of the neck. You can do this maybe up to 6 or 7 or 8 times. And then when you've completed that, bring your arms back down by your side. Okay, now we're going to come into a little bit more movement. So we've done some flexion work, and we've done a little bit of protraction and retraction of the shoulder blades. So now we're going to take this into a slightly more complex exercise, which is our windows. So we're going to start with the arms up above the chest, the palms are facing forwards. Shoulders are nicely down on the mat. The chest is nice and open. So we're going to lengthen the elbows out to the side, taking them down towards the floor or wherever is comfortable for you. Okay. The elbows are just below the height of the shoulder. You don't want them too high up, otherwise that causes too much distortion in the shoulder joint. So you want the elbows just below the shoulder height. The hands are facing up towards the ceiling, or the fingers are pointing up towards the ceiling, and the palms are facing forwards. Then you're going to rotate the arms, the forearms back towards the floor behind you, keeping the elbows in the same place. Then you're going to lengthen the arms up extending through the elbows, almost well, it's the same as the rib cage closure, and then back up above the chest. Okay, so we're going to breathe out as we widen through the elbows, taking the arms down towards the floor. We're going to breathe in as we rotate the forearms back towards the floor. We're going to breathe out as we come back to our rib cage closure, and we're going to breathe in as we come back up to the top. And again. So with this movement, you really need to think about, when you're exhaling, really allowing those ribs to remain connected to the mat and your breastbone to be nice and soft. So I can just see my arms moving in my peripheral vision. So if you can't see your arms moving, it probably means that you've taken the elbows too low, or you're taking your arms too low as you extend through the elbows, taking them back. We can also do a slightly different movement with this. We can actually take the arms in the opposite direction. I'll show you what I mean. So take the elbows wide, and now take the forearms down towards the floor, down towards the hips. And then lengthen through the elbows and back up above the chest. So this is taking the arm, when we did it the first way, that was what we call external rotation, and this is now internal rotation. There are certain shoulder problems that that can actually prevent this being comfortable at all. So if you find that that is uncomfortable, then just continue to do the first movement I showed you. With rotator cuff problems, the internal rotation is often very uncomfortable. Do a few in each direction and then bring your arms back down by your side. Okay, now with or without weights, whichever is fine, we're going to do some small arm circles directly with the arms directly above the chest. And this is just a little gentle circumduction of the humerus or the arm bone in the shoulder joint. And it's a really nice way of keeping mobility and hopefully keeping those shoulder joints nice and smooth. So let's take the arms up above the chest, making sure that if you're holding weights, that you've still got a good hand and wrist alignment, that they're not drooped or flexed or out of a neutral alignment. Okay, arms above the chest, and you can have the palms facing in or you can have them facing forwards. And we're simply going to do some arm circles. So really think about coming towards the midline, away. Try and keep the idea that your shoulder joint is the center of your circle, and you're going around in a nice even circle around that center. And then you can reverse the direction. So do an even number in each direction. This is a really nice mobility exercise, and holding the weights gives you a little bit more feedback as to what the shoulder joint is actually doing. Okay, still the arms, and then bend the arms and bring them back down by your side. Okay, we're now going to come round onto our fronts to do some upper back exercises. When you're working on shoulder blade control, it's really important to work the top of the back as well. Take the spine into extension, and that activates all those really important muscles, particularly in the top of the back, but those spinal extensors that we really do, need to work nice and hard to be able to get good shoulder control. So we'll come down onto our fronts, and we're going to do some diamond press to begin with. So if you can interlace your fingers underneath your forehead, then please do. Elbows are nice and wide. Legs just in a nice parallel position down on the mat, with the top of the feet on the mat. If you can't get into that position, just take your hands a little bit wider so that your arms are a little bit wider, and just come into whatever comfortable position you can find. You can have a head cushion underneath your head if you need to. Okay, so now we're going to come into some upper back extensions. So let's take a breath in, and as we breathe out, we're going to roll the nose up the mat, and we're just going to lift the head. And then from there, we're going to just extend a little bit more through the neck, and then take the extension sequentially down into the upper back, really thinking about sending that breastbone forwards, keeping the pelvis down on the mat, just as far as the tips of the ribs, no further. Breathing in at the top, and then you can breathe out to come back down, thinking about lengthening that head even further in front of you as you come down. Making sure that you have some abdominal control as well. So just very gently press the pubic bone into the mat, just so that you feel you can activate those lower abdominals to support the lower part of the spine. Take a breath in, breathe out, roll the nose, begin to lift the head through the neck into the upper back, sequentially extending through the spine. Feel that connection between the shoulder blades and running down the back. Breathe in to hold and breathe out to come back down again. And you can do 5 or 6 of those, and then you can also take the movement into the cobra, which is where we have wider arms, so goalpost arms, fingers just about in line with the eyes, elbows nicely down on the mat, and let's have the legs a little bit wider in a low V with the heels turned in towards the centre, so that our hips are in a little bit of rotation, and again gentle connection into the abdominals. So again, we're going to perform that same extension movement. Take a breath in, breathe out, roll the nose, lift the head, and then begin to extend through the neck, into the upper back, keeping the elbows down, sending the breastbone forwards, lengthening that spine towards whatever's in front of you, breathing in to hold, and breathe out to roll sequentially, chest, neck, and then finally head back down to the mat. And again. So with the cobra, you've got a little bit more space now that the elbows and the arms are a little bit further apart. You've got a little bit more space to get the extension a little bit further down into your thoracic spine. But again, those shoulders need to work away from the ears. So if you think about sending your breastbone forwards as you do this, really thinking about length to whatever's in front of you, keeping those shoulders away from the ears. And again, you can do 5 or 6 of these. And then when you've finished, tuck your toes under. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders, and you can either come up onto your knees, push yourself up onto your knees, or just whichever way you can, push yourself back into your nice rest position, knees apart, feet together, and just gently enjoy that stretch and breathe deeply into the ribs. Place your arms wherever is comfortable for you. This is a nice way of actually stretching out through the shoulders after doing a little bit of work so far with them. Or you can have them down by your side and allow the shoulders to roll forwards to stretch across the top of the back. And when you've done that, you can just gently roll yourself, restacking the spine, back up to kneeling, and then we're going to come into the 4-point kneeling position. So we're simply going to do some press and release, and then we'll do some arm movements as well. So the press and release is really a way of getting some mobility through the shoulder blade in the protraction and retraction that we did with our shoulder drops. It's the same sort of movement, but now we've added the extra challenge of the weight of the torso to be able to challenge the strength of the shoulders. So making sure you've got your hands under your shoulders, your knees under your hips, your fingers of your hands, if you can, spread them nice and wide. If you've got problems in your wrists, just prop your wrists up or your hands up onto some books, and then just curl your fingers over the edge of the books. For me, this is fine. So we're just going to come into that nice position too, with the knees under the hips. And now just think about sending the tailbone away behind you, your head to the opposite side, and then pressing down through the hands to really activate the shoulders. Gentle connection into the abdominals, and just tuck the ribs very slightly so that you've got a nice bit of support on the front line of the body. This is a very active start position. You're working against gravity here. Head to the highest point, scruff of the neck as though somebody's pulling you up towards the ceiling. So we're going to do a couple of exercises here, and this is all about shoulder movement again. So first of all, we're simply going to lengthen one arm forwards and then lift as far as you can, lengthening through the fingers up towards the ear and then back down to the mat and slide it back in. Other side, lengthen the arm forward, lift, back down and back in again. So breathing in, breathe out, take the arm forward, breathe in to lift, breathe out to bring it back down, and breathe in to draw it back in. And continue. So this is all about working the back of the shoulder. Try and keep a nice neutral position with the spine. Try not to let your weight shift over to the side to support yourself. Try and keep the hand underneath the shoulder, really pressing down through that supporting hand into the mat. You may not come up very far with this movement, that's absolutely fine. Whatever you can, just working on repetitions to really get some strength into the shoulder. So it's a really nice movement, working on flexion through the shoulder. So the other movement we're going to do is we're going to do a reverse fly. So our fly is where we start with a nice curved arm, almost as though we're hugging a nice big beach ball in front of us. The supporting arm is straight. Really put some nice weight through that supporting arm. Flip the hand of the other hand, and starting with the right hand side, you're going to think about lengthening the elbow out to the side and then extend through the elbow, and then again coming back, hugging that nice big beach ball. So we're working slightly different set of muscles here, but what we don't want to do is to go up into rotation. This is purely about thinking about length as far out to the side, to the wall at the other side of the room as you can. And again. So you could do maybe 4 to each side. Keeping the shoulders in a nice parallel position to the floor. Highest point, think length between the pelvis and the head. Length out to the side. This is one again you can do with weights, as you could do the flexion exercise with weights as well. But to begin with, just start it without. One more exercise we're going to do here, which really does begin to challenge the shoulders and really build some strength. Tuck the toes under. Make sure you've got really nice wide hands right underneath the shoulders, pressing down into the hands and pressing down into the toes. You're simply going to lift your knees up just an inch off the mat, hold, and then replace. So take a breath in, breathe out. Breathe in to come down. So you can hold for the count of 3 and then come down. And you can also increase the length of time that you spend in this hover position to really begin to challenge yourself and to build some strength. This really does work right across the top of the back of the shoulders. And because we're holding for a few seconds, it's what we call an isometric exercise. We're not actually moving, we're just holding and challenging the endurance of the muscle. And then after that you could take one more rest position just to free up the shoulders, and also this way. A couple of wide breaths in. Roll yourself back up to a standing position. And now we're just going to, one thing I didn't do was the press and release, so let's do the press and release. Okay. So now, thinking about sending the breastbone directly down towards the mat. So keeping everything else nice and still, just allow, as though somebody is just pressing you between the shoulder blades, sending your chest down towards the mat, and then push back up, just pushing the mat away so that you have a slight curve through the top of the back, and then down. This is also a nice way to create a nice stretch feeling across the top of the back, but it's really beneficial for shoulder blades gliding around the ribs. Okay, and back to a neutral position, and then roll yourselves back up. The last thing we're going to do is just to stretch for the front of the chest. This is a really important thing to do when you've been doing some shoulder exercises, and particularly if you've had shoulder injuries. One of the compensatory movements we can tend to make is to actually roll the shoulder forwards, so that we begin to then shorten the muscles across the front of the chest. So in order to be able to create some more space there and to get more openness in the chest, we do a stretch for the pectoral muscles. So just either find the edge of a door opening, or you can do it on a wall as well. It's more effective with the door opening, but I'll just do it on the wall here. You want the elbow just below shoulder level and the arm going straight up towards the ceiling. Okay, so now you want to just have also the elbow below shoulder level and slightly in front. You want to have body a comfortable distance away from the wall, nice and tall, lengthening up through the top of the head towards the ceiling. And with the inside leg, you're going to take a small step forward. You're going to leave the arm where it is, and you're just going to allow the body to come forwards, keeping the shoulders and the hips in line, not allowing them to rotate in towards the arm, so that you feel a stretch from the breastbone across the front of the shoulder. Hold for a few seconds, and then come back. And just rest. And then come forwards and hold. So what you're trying to do is to hold in a place where you feel that there is some tension, and hopefully that tension releases, slowly releases, and then rest, and then come back forwards again. Make sure that you do all these exercises with both shoulders, on both sides each time, and also do these stretches on both sides as well. I'll turn around and do it on this side. So inside leg comes forward, just breathe naturally for this. And then back. And that's a short video on some shoulder movement.